Good afternoon, I think officially, since we're just a minute after noon. It is my pleasure to wrap up Meridian today. It's been truly an incredible week, I think, for all of us at the SDF, and I think just meeting all of you and having all of you be in person for the first time since 2019 is a pretty remarkable thing. We've touched on so many applications and projects that are only possible using innovation. Innovation that is only possible in a decentralized environment. But this idea of decentralization and building on trustless technology sort of works in our bubble because we understand it. But it is really a difficult concept to describe to those outside of our industry and outside of our bubble. So how is it possible, is the question, for something to be trusted but trustless? So that's what we want to talk about today. This idea seems almost antithetical to so many people out there in the world. So I want to explore this and share with you all how we are collectively building a trusted, trustless network. So first, what is trust? You can hear my breath a lot. I'm breathing heavy. I'm not trying to. To understand trustless, let's understand first what we mean by trust. So every year there's this group that is called the Edelman Group, and they are a global communications firm. And what they do is they actually do global research on, of all things, trust. It's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. Have any of you heard of it? Okay, few. My husband, he's heard of it. Trust itself can be kind of this abstract idea, but they give it shape by describing it as a belief in the future. It is sort of this willingness to accept uncertainty. It's powerful in the way that it can impact human behavior. And in fact, all of us understand that we live in a world from a human standpoint of trusting one another. But it's very subjective and complex. And trust is ultimately the currency, and I've said this for years and years and years, it is the currency in a relationship that all institutions face. So all of you face it with your consumers, with your business partnerships, governments, NGOs, and the media. Some of us trust or don't trust the media. They build that with their stakeholders, or sometimes they don't build that with their stakeholders. It's one of the things I used to say when, back in the day when I was at Mozilla, that it's the easiest thing to have and the simplest thing to lose because it gets abused, and once abused, you lose that trust. So how well are institutions, governments, businesses, people, how well are they building trust with their stakeholders? Well, the answer is not great. In the latest trust barometer this year from Edelman, you can see that distrust is now society's default emotion. And I want us to think about that for a minute. We sort of default to not trusting. And they say nearly 6 in 10 say that their default tendency is to not trust something until they see evidence that it's trustworthy. So of the institutions that they studied, businesses rank the highest, which frankly, at 61%, that ain't so great, right? And if you think about NGOs, they're a bit higher. They're at 59%. Governments are at the lowest sort of end of that, which is 52%. And I should have said, and media ranks at 50%, which is sort of the way that people get their content. So that's really sad that people don't trust that. Societal leadership is now a core function of business. And CEOs, so many of you out there, are expected to shape conversations around policy, around the economy, around wage inequity, technology and automation, and for global warming and climate change, which is sort of apropos of the conversation that we just heard on stage before. Across every single issue, by a huge margin, people want more business engagement. And they also want, on climate change, for example, 52% say that business is not doing enough. I think we might all agree that that's probably true, while only 9% say that businesses are overstepping with respect to climate change. The role and expectation for business has never been clearer And business must recognize this as a societal role. This is what society wants from all of us in the room from a business standpoint. And that's here to stay, I think. So when you think about this overall level of distrust, it isn't surprising that people were looking and have been looking for alternatives, for new technologies, for alternatives from the traditional institutions, because they are so dissatisfied with what has been available and with the status quo, because it's not really working for them. At least they don't perceive it as working for them. So then came blockchain. And not only is the authority to run this decentralized, there's no authority that runs decentralized technologies, but creating shared ownership across stakeholders, instead of centralizing it with one single entity, is sort of the way that we can actually create that trust. But if you consider it's emerged not too long after the financial crisis, it helps some people feel control in a world that they didn't feel they had any control in. So they didn't want to solely rely on the institutions, the governments, the businesses then, and the banking services that were available at that point. So decentralization creates this innovation space and this opportunity to push for better solutions that give people more power, more control. It removes those unnecessary intermediaries and puts the power in the hands of each of the individuals rather than any institution. I mean, we say this all the time, but I think we should really think about that. That is really powerful, to put the power in the hands of the individual. People often ask me, why is decentralization so important? Why is it good? My kids have asked me this many times. How can something that doesn't come from a centralized authority, how can it be reliable? All the time, I don't know if any of you get this, but as a layer 1 technology, when we're talking to governments, they always want to know, who do we go to when something breaks? So this is the challenge of decentralization, but I think it's also the opportunity. Who can we hold accountable? So decentralization is important for so many reasons, but to summarize, it drives innovation, empowerment, which is huge for individuals as well as companies, smaller companies being able to participate on a different level. Software that is open, which is one of the things I care so much about and have cared so much about for so many years. And decentralized, it allows others to build without permission. And isn't that so much of what we're looking for in the world, to do things without permission? My son probably would like that too, to do things without permission. It puts end users in control of their own assets because there is no one entity that controls an open public blockchain. And decentralized networks, they work because they're stable. The network persists and synchronizes regularly. And it does so, and it spreads across servers all over the world. So there's no one server that can go down that can break the whole. They're secure because no one can change an immutable record. The numbers they can't manipulate to make it work for them. And transparent because everyone can see the ledger. You can see it all the time. We heard about this from Carmen this morning. Like, that's an important part, that transparency. It's really important to be able to have that. And with decentralized networks, there is no single point of failure, like with a closed network that all rely on the same server. If closed network server go down, the service fails. A decentralized network spread across many servers all around the world creates a different opportunity. So decentralization gives us this incredible opportunity to use innovation to push for a different system. One that doesn't need to usurp the existing system. I say this all the time. We're not here to usurp the existing financial infrastructure. We're here to enhance it, to create innovation, to have opportunity for others to be able to have a voice. And frankly, it just makes the world a better place. So, the power of Stellar and all of its features, there are so many, but maybe most important, it is being an open source public blockchain. It is a critical component to building trust in a trustless environment. Stellar gives builders, like all of the people that are identified here, an open platform to reimagine systems and solutions. And as a network designed for speed, affordability, and utility. What we're building on this network and what you've all shared and heard this week shows that we aren't just talking about the value of what it means to be trustless. We are proving that it is value and that we are building trust, belief in the future that this technology can be relied upon. That's why we've almost had 400 of you come to this amazing event put on by so many to be able to not just share your ideas, but to learn from others. Came from all parts of the world, which I always think is so remarkable, and we're honored to be the convener of that. This is why there are more than 80 anchors on the network who are creating global on and off ramps and digital assets that can be, and this is an important word, interoperable. It doesn't make it work just because it's decentralized. We saw on Web 2, on the content side of the web, as I like to call it, that even with the decentralized system at its core, there still can be a few that can maintain the control and the power of the messages. But we're not trying to do that here, and that's what we're collectively trying to build. That's why this network is able to process billions of transactions securely. That is why the network continues to engage new players and new organizations, and some of you who haven't yet started to build on Stellar, you can see the energy and the ability that you can just create what you want to create. And then you can create and have network effects with so many of the others. Leveraging this technology strengthens the important life-changing and life-saving work that everyone does. And for those of you who were at our first Meridian in Mexico City, it was awesome, it was in 2019, I want you to think about what the ecosystem looked like then and think about what it looks like now. It completely energizes me. I was just talking this morning, Candace Kelly and I went on a walk early this morning, and I was explaining like the difference in terms of the energy, the enthusiasm, and the numbers of people that are engaging with us from 2019 to today is awe-inspiring, remarkable, and just super special. That's why just yesterday, the day we launched Soroban on testnet, a developer from another network, and I won't name the network, came in and tried Soroban out and saw how optimized our tech is. And that's a really important thing. We have spent time with all of you to figure out what we need to do to make things not just good enough, but to make things better. This is because we're intentional, not just at SDF, but we are collectively intentional about how we build. We started this week with Alexis Ohanian talking about how constantly challenging he's constantly challenging his founders to build products that people need and want. All of you have that challenge too. Gotta build products that people need and want to solve problems that they actually have. And when we look at this network and we look at this ecosystem, we are all working together to do something good. We talk about at SDF using blockchain, using Stellar for good. It doesn't mean that you all have to have the same mission. But the thing is, we're solving problems. We're solving real-world problems that people have in all of these different geographies across the world. That's what it means to use this technology for good. We are helping to solve financial access. Even if that is not the mission of your company, that is what we are doing with this technology. And when you're innovating in a mission-driven way, again, even if you don't adhere to that necessarily to that mission and you have your own goals, you can build in a meaningful way. When you're always thinking about how it benefits people and not just the bottom line. In the United States, we have this thing called a C Corp. And it's companies that it's a B Corp. C Corp is the normal company. But a B Corp is a company that has obviously all of this need to provide shareholder value, but it has this additional pillar that it has to think about, and that is, what is the public benefit that you're shooting for? And so I like to think of all of you, even if you don't have that kind of label on you, I like to think of all of you as B Corps. You're doing what you need to do, not just for the people that are building with you, but you're solving problems for those end users. and you're doing it in a way that's benefiting them because you're getting them access to financial services that they never had. That's where you're a B Corp. You have that public benefit value. And that's how we can make decisions that are good for the network, like making sure fees are always low, technology is always accessible, and speed is paramount. And I feel really strongly that when you take all of this together, it proves that not only is it possible to be both trusted and trustless at the same time, but it is today a reality. And the Stellar Network and our amazing ecosystem is truly proof of that. So my takeaway for all of this is just keep doing. Keep doing what it is that you're doing. This week was all about the urgency of doing. What action needs to happen to move forward? And I hope that you all walk away inspired and energized by everything that you've heard, everything that you've seen, but mostly everything that you've felt. Because we all know that the thing you carry away is how something made you feel. And I hope that this week it made you feel not just the urgency of doing, but what we're collectively doing together is special. And it's good. And it's trustworthy, even if trustless. Carry that message home about all this incredible work that you've learned that's happening here and around the world that shows that being trustless and trusted are not antithetical, and that working together with a trustless system can result in not only the most trusted environment, but an environment that is full of diverse ideas, creative solutions, and the passion to improve the lives of our global community. And that is not only infectious, but it is motivating, and it creates the urgency of doing. So thank you all for coming to Meridian, for sharing this whole experience with us, for building on Stellar, for making Stellar better, for pushing us harder, Carmen, as I said, to be better, to be stronger, and to be the best version of all of ourselves. I appreciate all of you.